What's up, beautiful souls? Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Psychiatrist Podcast. And today, my guest of honor is our first female podcast guest. And it's an honor and a joy to have Miss Alice Hong. She travels the world. She does women's empowerment retreats. She teaches the art of untaming yourself. And literally, women come to her retreat and they are transformed. Literally with, from what I hear, even one session. And sacred sexuality and the art of Tantra is literally going to be such an important part of creating the new earth. And on that note, I had the honor of holding sacred space for her soul. And for me, it's always special when a soul is so passionate about helping humanity and serving humanity, and I could hear that. And then also another aspect of one of the things I'm excited about delving into today is sacred partnership. And so her partner is a good friend of mine, Amir, and their union is really beautiful to witness. They go deep, and you can tell just by their union that they're doing something right. So I'm really excited to delve into all of these topics today. Alice, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. It's a joy, pleasure, and honor to be here. Thanks for having me. I had
Thanks
to
for
laugh.
taking time.
I had this little inner smile when you were like, Amir and her doing something right in their relationship. And I was like, yeah, I feel so good that we've gotten here because it hasn't always felt that way from the start. So I just want to take a moment to really honor that because it's been such a ride and such an amazing one.
100%, and there's something about, instead of going wide with a lot of people, going deep with one person. There's something really special, vulnerable, powerful about that. And I know that you guys have been together approximately 8 years now. And I also love the story of how you guys met. But for those who are entering into sacred union, and can you share with us, Alice, just maybe some of the tips you learned in sacred partnership, some of the jewels, some of the wisdom?
Sure. I mean, I think, this work in my sacred partnership, as well as the work that I do with empowering women, runs in parallel together. And I was, when Amir and I met 8 years ago, it was really in this moment where neither of us were looking for a relationship at all. Like I was about to go on Vipassana retreat, like silent retreat for 10 days. I was in between teaching 2 yoga retreats. I was like, no relationship. And then this man showed up in my life and it was just like irresistible to want to hang out with him. But what was really amazing is that when I think back to myself 8 years ago, I'm not the woman that I am today. And Amir is not the man that he was then. And if we met each other now, but as who we were then, like we would probably never be together right now. And it is in the deepening of each of us doing our own personal work, our own personal growth, our own spiritual work, having so many parallels on our path, but also uniquely separate moments. Like he's here with you right now, and I'm so in full support of his mission with you right now, Sam. I'm here doing my work with the Untamed Sisters. And then we get to really harvest the gems from each of our individual journeys and bring it back into our relationship. So I think that's one piece. And the other part is that he is such a support of the work that I do. And Untamed, we've used this word already. Untamed is one of the programs that I run for women. And that whole program emerged from my own journey because at one point I had become so disconnected from my body, which included my sexuality, which was kind of this almost cosmic joke because I was a yoga teacher. I had a yoga teacher training school. Like I had certified hundreds of teachers teaching people to come into their bodies and their breath every single day. And yet somehow I was cut off, like in my sexuality completely. And it wasn't until I really reclaimed my full body, which included my sexuality, which included my emotions, not trying to meditate my emotions away, but actually fully saying, yes, I'm a human being that feels, and also welcoming that in my partner as well, in his unique expression of what that is, which can sometimes feel conflicting and other times we dissolve into each other and learn so much from each other. So yeah, it was really like being on this path of stripping away everything that I was told that I should be in the world, who I should be from my conditioning, him doing the same thing, and then us finding beautiful meeting points along the way.
Beautiful. And I love that you said that, it started with you guys both having kind of a spiritual practice on your own, and then coming together and meeting each other and being supportive of each other's work. Now, I know this is going to sound really, I want to delve into this part where you said you were certifying yoga teachers, hundreds of yoga teachers, you're moving your body and breathing every single damn day, but still you were disconnected from your feelings, from your sexuality. Alice, can you walk, because there's a lot of people probably out there in the same way, and with all compassion for the way the system is set up, can you walk us through some of your journey of how to reclaim your sexual power, what that looked like, what were the key things that you learned along the way of reclaiming your sexual power?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think maybe just to like paint a brief journey about that, like when I grew up, like I remember being a little girl, and I have such vivid memories of being in my sexual body. Like memories of being like, I have this one of being in preschool, for example. I was probably 4 years old, and it was like this beautiful summer day, and there was green grass, and it was spring, and I had a skirt on, and I was just literally like in the grass, with like this little girl playing, hanging out, and I could feel this grass like brushing against my inner thighs and on my vulva. And just like there was nothing wrong with it. There was nothing taboo about that. It was just like this innocence of this pleasure of the body. And then I have another memory not so long from there where like I used to, I mean, I was a kid. Most kids are very sensual with their bodies, right? We suck our thumbs, we suck our toes, we put everything in our mouths. Like we learn about the world through our senses. And I would self-pleasure when I was young, not knowing that was self-pleasure. That was just discovering my body. And bless my mom, she had a moment where she walked into the bath, and I was having a great time with myself. And she had this moment, of course, was just like, oh my God, like, where did you learn how to do this? You can't touch yourself there. Like, did somebody teach you to do that? She really got into fear. And that was the first moment that I realized, oh, there's something wrong with this. Like before that, I never thought that until there was this imprint of can't touch yourself there. That's wrong. Who did that? It's not safe, you know? And then the conditioning started, right? And I'm sure many people, including people who are listening to this, have this message, whether it was from your parents or from society or from school, where it was wrong to essentially be in your body and discover it in healthy ways. We learn a lot of unhealthy ways, because we don't have healthy role models, and we go to porn, we go to advertisements, all of this. But so the first step, I would say, in untaming and really reclaiming your sexuality and pleasure is first awaken to what is like, bring awareness to this ocean that you're swimming in the first place. I have what I call my awake method with the women, and the first A is about awareness. Like we don't sometimes even know what the ocean that we're swimming in is. We don't even know that it's wet until we take a moment to pause and say, wait a minute, is that true? Like, is it true that my body is not a safe place to be? Is it true? And then just to start to question some of those belief patterns. That would be the first step. And then the second step is then to take a few beautiful breaths into your body. Like the first thing I always start with is like hand to heart, hand to belly. Yes. This is taught many times in meditation or in yoga classes. But then also take your hand to your genitals. Whether you're a man or a woman, like to have your hand, one hand to heart, one hand to your genitals, and even just breathing into them and acknowledging that they exist.
Yeah.
It's such a simple thing, but it's important because sometimes maybe the body hasn't been a safe place to be. For us, boundaries have been violated. For example, we couldn't speak our boundaries when we needed to. We've dissociated from the body. So this is like one simple practice to come back into the body.
Mm.
And then from there, there's many different practices, of
Yeah.
course. But first is really strip away the conditioning and then come into the here and now of this body exists and I am
Yeah.
allowed to feel.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, beautiful. And then so almost like reclaiming the innocence as well, because when you were a kid and that grass was like brushing, there was no second thought until fear was taught. It
Yes.
was conditioned in that moment that the religion or mom or dad or society, and you go to a massage and it's like the whole society has been like, they don't touch, they don't talk about it, they don't speak about it. And then like this conditioning starts forming. And so you're saying you got to become aware of that conditioning first, and then actually go through it, go into it, and breathe into it, touch it again, let it know that, hey, yo, you're a part of my body, and you're welcome here. So you've come a long way though, Alice, because like from there, now you're teaching Tantra. And I know that, you've also been to ISTA, I think level 1, 2. Can you tell us a little bit more about after becoming aware of this process, becoming aware of the conditioning, like now walk us through like, okay, we're aware the truth of what sacred sexuality is and how you really empowered yourself to even become a teacher, and why you became a teacher.
Sure. Well, why I became a teacher was because at one point I was just so desperate to feel at home in my body. That was one. And
Yeah.
then the other part was I just longed to have deep intimacy that really nourished me on every single level.
Mm.
And at this point, like I had had a lot of sex before, and then I had also had a period where I was celibate within a marriage, which was a whole journey on its own. That I was like, you know what? Everybody talks about sex. It's everywhere. Like it should be the best thing in the world. I'm not feeling that.
Mm.
Like it's okay, or like it's kind of like for a hot minute, it's fun. But I just felt like there must be more to it than that. There's gotta be.
Yeah.
So that was part of my deep exploration. And I had had a lot of really beautiful partners in the past, but it wasn't until I met Amir that I met someone who really wanted to go to all the places with me, wanted to know every part of who I am, and that I wanted to know that with him as well. So that was one thing. The second thing, quite honestly, is kind of a simple answer, but it's to get some education. Like,
Mm.
I have a course where I teach about pleasure, and one of the modules is called the sex ed that you never got.
Mm.
It's really
Yeah.
like it's like learning about our body. Like, what are all the pleasure spots? What happens if we're holding tension in a part of our vagina that doesn't want to let go? What do we do with that? How do we invite more softness into the body? How do we let go of not being so goal oriented in the way that we experience intimacy, and actually slow down and soften and feel and take our time to become curious? So a lot of it, I think, part of it in that steps was really education, like learning about the anatomy of my body. It sounds
Mm.
very unsexy, but it can be done in a very sexy way. And
Yeah.
also learning about the anatomy of men for me as well,
Mm.
to educate myself. And then the next thing I would say is really like embodiment practices.
Mm.
And what
Can
do
you
I
walk
mean
us
by
through
that
some
is,
embodiment practices? What that like to embody? Let's just someone out there is wanting to, really empower and embody into their body and find their sexual power. Are there any suggestions that you have?
yeah, I mean, one of them is called Yoni mapping. It's a really beautiful practice of learning the anatomy of your own sexual organs and bringing conscious touch to every part of your genitals.
Mm.
So on the woman, for example, when I do a mapping workshop with women, it's like, okay, so here is literally your labia, here is the clitoris, here are the legs of the clitoris, here's
Mm.
not just your G spot, but your K spot, your A spot, your P spot, your like all of these things. Let's landmark them. And then we bring loving, present touch to every part of your body that your body says yes to. And there's different ways to touch. Sometimes you can pad like this, sometimes it's like going like this, but it's
Mm.
literally like reconnecting the neural pathways of your sexual body to the brain to say, yes, this indeed is my body. Yes, indeed, this is my pleasure. It's really it's called mapping, because it literally maps your neural pathways
Mhm.
so that you can make this connection in present moment time.
What have you found with women who, because there's probably a lot of men and women who've never actually conscious loving touch for the genital region in their whole life, possibly because like they've only with so what have you found when people are able to like consciously lovingly reconnect and touch and yoni map?
Often the first thing are tears.
Mm, mm,
This feeling of like, wow, I can be safe and held, where I'm touched in a way where it's not for someone else,
mm,
but it's for me.
mm,
Most people haven't been touched without feeling like they then need to reciprocate,
mm,
or that it's actually for somebody else's pleasure. So that's the
mm,
first thing. The tears also come because it's just this deep remembrance. And I mean, Sam, your work touches on this all the time,
mm,
right? It's this deep remembrance of, oh, this is who I am. This is who I am when I soften. This is
mm,
who I am when I surrender, when I let go
mm,
into the beauty of this moment. Sometimes if women want to, they get to map each other as
mm,
well. So this is precious,
mm,
because most heterosexual women haven't been in the presence of another woman's vulva before. So
mm.
really to like bow at the
Wow.
altar of
Mm,
creation,
yeah.
it is such an honor.
Mm,
Yeah. So the
yeah.
tears come. And then sometimes as we move in, sometimes there's pleasure,
Mm,
which can be very joyful. So we celebrate that when the pleasure is there. Sometimes women will feel sometimes frustrated because they realize that there's part of their body that's numb, because we just have never brought sensation, or maybe there was a trauma or something that exists in there. So we actually have tissue that is desensitized, that we cannot feel,
mm,
um, has been holding a trauma or a past story. So then sometimes it can feel a bit like, oh, like frustrated. This isn't so common, but sometimes that's there.
mm,
And then other times there's feelings like anger or rage that can move through as well, because within the tissues of our body is cellular memory of histories that we have from this lifetime, from past lifetimes, from our individual life, from the collective field. And we feel that. Our bodies are so attuned that way when we sensitize. So sometimes rage or anger can be felt as well. And then if that happens for anybody, then the tool is really to give yourself permission to express that. Like,
mm,
let your body move, yell if you need to, hit some pillows, like whatever it is, to really let your body start to come more alive by allowing that emotion, your energy emotion, to really move through the body.
mm.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And so reconnecting with the body through sacred sensual touch and conscious touch. Can you describe to me the process of how that allowed, like how it allows someone to feel again? I know a lot of people are suppressing, repressing their feelings. How is feeling involved? Like, coming back into the body and allowing ourselves to feel.
Yeah. Yeah, the feeling part is sometimes the most challenging, because especially with sexuality, I think many of us have been taught to be performative in some way.
Yeah.
Or I think that I should look like this or sound like this. So it almost becomes a show. Not that we always mean to be that way. And I don't say that with any judgment. It's just kind of like what we've seen. So this is how we're going to be, or what we've heard. So part of that is really, just hold on. I lost track of your question, Sam.
Yeah, just feeling an embodiment. Like, how can we allow ourselves to kind of like, I know you were talking about sometimes when you get embodied, like you can also then allow yourself to fully feel every emotion. And I was just wondering
Yeah.
if there's any connection there between the two.
Yeah, sure. So when we come back into the body,
Yeah.
our body does is interconnected with our emotional body. So we've got the physical body, the emotional body, the energetic body. We've got many different layers of our body, and they're all woven and connected. So inevitably, when we start to open our bodies in a more conscious way, when we start to come alive in the body, our emotional body is also touched. In Tantra, for example, which has been a beautiful philosophy for me, it really invites us to say yes to it all. Like yes to life, yes to feeling, yes to joy and bliss and orgasmic, experiences, and yes to feeling the sadness, the grief, the anger, the pain, in order to expand our capacity to be fully alive as the human beings that we are. We need to be able to feel our full range. And I think that's actually, if we jump to larger worlds right now, I really believe that if we could all come home to the power that is in our cells and in our bodies, and we could come alive enough to really crack open our hearts at the same time, there could be no war. Like, it would just be impossible. Because when we're sitting as fully alive, empowered beings in front of each other, what is there to get power over? Nothing.
Yeah.
So that's where I think coming alive in the body and then coming alive in the emotions start to expand. It can be scary, of course, because especially if you've been living a life that feels really numb, it can feel like, whoa, okay, I just opened the gates and now what? Like, what do I do with all of this emotion? What do I do with all of these feelings? And I think the mastery of that, when it comes, is that to realize that our emotions is really our life force moving through our body. It is simply an expression of life vibrating. And sometimes it takes the form of tears and sometimes it takes the form of rage. It's all different. But at its essence, it's life vibrating.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So when we can say, okay, this is life vibrating through me in this moment, then we can start to have a bit more mastery around, okay, so how do I want to channel this energy? Where do I want to place it? But first it's allowing and giving permission first.
Yeah. So honestly, this is such a huge subject because I feel like most of society, with religious programming, with cultural programming, with all the porn industry, all these different things, that the majority of people out there have not fully experienced the true pleasure and beauty of God's beautiful life force energy creation of what sacred energy exchange sex is meant to be, the most powerful creative force on the planet. And you mentioned, you just put that in there at the end, that you can use it to create anything you want, period. It doesn't have to be to create a baby. And so I remember, for me, the first time I actually experienced Tantra, you can never go back. You can never, once you understand the beauty of being present with someone without any goal, with just love, breathing together, the chakras connecting together, and making love, if you want to, for 8 hours in a row, and just love, and then your auric field is so charged afterwards. And this is what Jesus and Mary Magdalene did. And so, it's such a huge thing. I feel like moving into the new earth, that the truth of sacred sexuality, the truth of this beautiful, amazing power. And I love what you said, that if we can only reconnect, the physical is connected to the emotional. And so many percentage of people are cut off from their physical power and I'll be honest, I'm still working on reclaiming my power in sacred sexuality wise. And so, but what you're saying is the physical is connected to the emotional, to the mental, and the spiritual is all connected. And Alice, can you, sometimes, I've met some ISTA people in my journey, International School of Temple Arts, and when I meet them, they have a quality kind of like what you're describing. It feels like they're very grounded in their sexual power. They're not easily bothered. They feel the full range of their emotions, and they're also very more comfortable with their body than most people. Can you tell us a little bit about, um, you know I don't know, for people who are out there saying, I want this, I want to be reconnected. Is ISTA a good way to go? Or what are your courses? How can people kind of reclaim this amazing creative force and power?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, thanks for bringing that piece, Sam, because I mean, ISTA has been a dear, dear, dear part of my path. I have many, teachers, mentors, colleagues, beloved friends from there, and I think the brilliance of a program like ISTA is that it really, like, it's about sex and it's not about sex.
Mm,
It's about coming home to our bodies fully, to embrace it, to say, yes, this is also welcome. And at its core, it is reclaiming our creative power. It's learning to take a stand for who we are in our life with all of our, fault, our perceived faults and shortcomings and vulnerabilities, as well as our like, fuck yeah, I'm going to take a stand for who I am and really share the fullness of me. Because why hold back,
mhm.
really? Like,
Yeah.
it's not doing anybody a service. And one of my mentors, Kamala Lira, who I love a lot, she always poses this question, like, what are you waiting for before you come alive? What are we waiting for?
Mm,
Like, somebody to
mm,
tell me that I can? Like, somebody to hand me a permission slip? Like, somebody to not be disappointed? What are we waiting for? And who are we placing that in the hands of?
mm,
Right? So if I'm waiting for you to say, like, okay, Sam's got the answer to my life, or Alice does, or whoever, then we're again giving our power away. So of course, sometimes we need guides and mentors. I've
mm,
definitely had mine, but the best ones I've found, in ISTA included, is the one who turns the mirror back and
mm.
says, wait, you hold the power here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
let's just remember that together.
Yeah. So Alice, talk to me about Alice before ISTA level 1, and then Alice after ISTA level 3. What would you say is the difference? You know.
Sure. I think for me, it was really a big part was learning to take self-responsibility.
Mm,
Um, and I'm still learning this. I still feel these moments where it's so easy to blame someone else for my unhappiness, or blame society or the patriarchy or whatever. And of course, yes, indeed, that is a part of the layer. And yet I am, first of all, ultimately, I am also that. So there is no separation, because I
yeah.
see it. I am also that. So I'm actually no separate from it. And then also to really see that I do hold the keys to my own freedom.
Mm,
They're right here. And anytime that I give my power away by saying, like, you have control over how I feel or what I do or what I say, then I'm actually disempowering myself. So being at ISTA really took me on this path of taking, like, radical self-responsibility, that everything that comes into my life, whether it's a person or a situation, I created that.
mm,
And I am also that.
mm,
And then that starts to dissolve any separation, right? That is, it's me and another. So ISTA really gave me that. And also, I'm between ISTA and a number of other things that I've done as well. And then also, like, the journey of Untamed that I've led women through 20 times, but also, of course, I'm a part of it,
yeah.
is that I'm just more real, I think, like,
Mm,
and more alive. It's
mhm,
like I don't give as many fucks anymore.
mhm,
I still do. I notice the places, and sometimes it's healthy, to also have some humility, of course, and know that we have impact on others. But it's really just to, like, not hold back life.
yeah, beautiful. So talk to me a little bit about sacred partnership, going deep with someone. You and Amir have been together 8 years, and I was just driving in the car with Amir today, and he was telling me, you know what, it's been 8 years and we still get the body tingles. You know what I mean? Like, you guys still have this attraction for each other, and like, I'm just gonna keep it real, like, probably like 90% of couples after 4 or 5 years, or 2, 3 years even, those body tingles are gone. You know what I mean? That usually only lasts people like the honeymoon period or something like this. But after 8 years, you guys still have that magnetic electrical attraction towards each other. And I can tell because he's my roommate, and like, I can tell he's waiting to go home to you. Um, So, talk to me just a little bit about, because and then both of you guys have done ISTA, both of you guys understand sacred sexuality, and you guys have, going deep. And I'm sure you guys have been through a lot in the 8 years, and you're still together, and you still have the body tingles. Talk to me a little bit about that journey and about sacred partnership and with sacred sexuality, and some things that, some takeaways that
Sure.
the listeners might benefit from.
Yeah. That story just makes me smile. Um, yeah, I think, I mean, there's a few things. One of them is that I, f- because we've both been on such an evolution, it's like I'm not making love with the same man that I did
Mm,
like even a few months ago. I mean, I am and I'm not. It's like I
mm,
am, and then there's these other layers that are unraveling
mm,
that are here. And I just feel like we really bring in this word curiosity a
mm,
lot into our relationship. Like, how can I become more curious about my partner?
mhm,
And that includes in our sexuality. So
mhm,
how can I bring in like, wow, like there's so many things about Amir that I still don't know after 8
mhm.
years,
Wow.
and him about me. And so we really work on not getting in a routine
Mhm,
also with our sexual intimacy, to really like keep on learning and to broaden. And also another thing that really works is when we actually devote time to saying like, okay, let's explore this together.
mm,
Let's explore like anal de-armoring, or let's explore sacred union of dissolving into each other's hearts and falling through each other. Like, it can be any range,
mhm,
but to keep it varied, not for the sake of variation and not for the sake of entertainment, but for the curiosity of expanding our capacity and
mhm.
always staying curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. So you're constantly both evolving personally, have your own practice, and then you bring a healthy curiosity. And science says that the cells are constantly turning over. So you are never looking at the same person because the cells are constantly turning over. And then also, after 8 years, you can also honestly say that you're not making love with the same man. You're still curious and you're exploring different things consciously and moving into these things while you're both constantly evolving. And it was really sweet, man. Because like we were shopping today, and let's just say he has a few surprises he got for you here, that he's gonna bring back to you, right? And so, I thought that was so cool, and he's like showing me, like showing his friend, look what I got for Alice, right, right. And so it was just really cool because I could tell, you know what I mean, like the love is still alive and it's still fresh, and it's he was like excited to get you a gift, and it was really cool. Yeah, and so what is the most, as now generally speaking as a woman, I love Amir. He's a beautiful man. What is the most, generally speaking, you work with women, as a man, any advice you can give to a man of how a woman wants to be loved?
I think, of the thousands of women that I've talked to around this topic, I would say that the biggest thing is to let go of the goal,
Hmm,
to let go of the goal of ejaculation, or that's where sex ends. That's a huge one, because then there's pressure.
hmm,
Either there's pressure that then sex needs to look a certain way, or there's disappointment, or it's just too focused, loses the mystery and the curiosity.
hmm,
That's
yeah,
one. I think another one is that ultimately I feel that for most women, they really want to feel chosen and held. And what I mean by chosen and held also is, whether you're with someone like in a long-term partnership, or whether you're making love for somebody for a night and you just know that it's a night, which is also fine, like that's also allowed and welcome. But that I fully choose you in this moment, and opening myself to everything that is here and that you are. And I feel that women, like, I don't know if Amir told you this, but it was just our 8-year anniversary. And the first night that we made love, I cried,
hmm,
and yesterday he just asked me, Alice, I've never asked you, why did you cry?
Mm,
Like, I've never known why. And I don't know why from my brain, but I think my body just felt seen and held. He was so present with me. The sadness that I was holding from a marriage that was dissolving, as I met Amir, finally had the space to say, wow, and this too, this is also allowed. Even as we are making love for the first time, you know,
mm,
this energy is moving through my body, this emotion, this life, and that there was space for it. I felt safe enough that there was space for me to be fully who I am.
mm,
And that I hear from a lot of women is such a key. It's like
mm.
full presence and the feeling of safety that I can be fully who I am.
Wow. Yeah. So safety, presence, no goal, which opens the gateway for curiosity, and they want to
Yeah.
be chosen and held. And you said that even if it's just for the evening, like you can still make them feel chosen and held. And so I think those are a lot of really good pointers for males. And it's not easy because like you have to literally be present, decondition all of the conditioning that there is a goal, all these different things. And really at the end of the day, I think it's just like presence, breath, and always like love, And so if you were to have looked at those tears that you cried underneath a microscope, right? And you were to examine those tears, uh, you know, um, what emotion do you think would be found in those tears?
I don't know if this is an emotion, but
Mm,
the word that comes to me is longing.
mm.
And it's this longing to dissolve into source.
Wow, that's
Like,
deep.
so I don't know, like, so we didn't touch about this too much this podcast, and this is probably a topic for,
Mm,
another moment, but I Amir and I have also been in an open relationship for a lot of the
mm,
8 years, not all of it.
mm,
I am usually the one who needs a bit more like safety and like grounded back into ourselves. And we're in this right now, which I asked for because I feel the gems that are here when we really fully commit to
mm,
each other. But, we've had moments like I remember one day it was after Burning Man and
mhm,
we were in our trailer all
mhm,
dusty and, festivaled up. And we were in this trailer and Amir was like being juicy and playful. He's like,
mhm,
babe, tell me all your, like, what's your biggest fantasy?
mhm.
And I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, and this is like coming from my Asian upbringing where I couldn't even
Yeah,
say like
yeah.
vagina,
Mm.
until I was 33 or something. So like I've really come a long way.
Yeah.
And we were in this trailer and I was like, oh God, like I don't know what to say. I don't even know what to come up with. He's like, come on, like tell me, And I was like, babe, I really don't know. Like I really don't want to play this game right now. I'm just not feeling it. Like, can we just make love and like not ask this question? He's like, oh come on, like not until you say something. And I mean Amir kind of pokes, right? So he poked me enough
Mhm,
that then I again just cracked open into tears. And I said, my greatest fantasy is for you, my beloved, to want nothing else but me in this moment. And for us to just fully merge and dissolve together, you know?
mm,
So in the world of also like open relationships and sexual freedom, like I mean, I've had my fair share of like really wild things that I never imagined I would ever experience. Like I never even gave myself permission to think that I could experience that. So I'm
mhm,
grateful for that. And at the end of the day, if I really strip down what is really my deepest desire
mhm.
is to merge with God.
You know, I just want to take a sacred pause there because for me, that is the whole reason for sex. Sacred energy exchange is a female has a magnetic advantage, a male has an electric advantage, and the two were created. Literally, there's a point where male and female were created where they were to merge so that they could literally merge into source and catalyze each other's growth into ascension, if you want to call it, into becoming one with source. And so that's really beautiful that you said underneath those tears that, like, after being in a marriage for so long, and then like literally just in that presence and in that love and feeling like held and present, like literally the tears came out of that longing for source. And I think everybody has that longing for source, like a hole in the soul that only source can fill. Alice, can you talk to us a little bit about the sexual alchemy and how sacred energy exchange can help fulfill that longing for source, and help catalyze that?
Sure. I mean, this is a field of exploration for us, so I can share where
Mhm.
I've
Yeah.
experienced in this moment, and then if we talk a year from now, maybe this will shift.
Yeah.
But for me, it's really like the female body holds the vessel, and it is built like a vessel, and
Mhm.
also like our pelvis and our vulva, and that is the sacred portal of God and life, right? Our
Mhm.
womb is it's the womb of creation. This is where life and spirit, like spirit and matter, meet and gets nourished.
Mhm.
So what a sacred portal this is, in like such the truest non-spiritual woo sense of the word. It is
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
And the cervix of the woman, to me, is such a sacred spot on the body as well, because it's the gatekeeper to the womb,
Mhm.
right? And the cervix, often in penetrative sex, often the penis or the lingam, that's called in Sanskrit, goes like this, right? And it penetrates.
Mhm.
And it's kind of hitting the cervix in this way, which actually often can create a tension in the body,
Mhm.
because it's really soft tissue. So it's being knocked on like
Mhm.
this. Um, Whereas when we learn how to actually soften the body, and we see that the lingam is really like the pilgrim,
Mhm.
who is moving towards the temple of the woman. And if our body is our temple, then the entrance of the vagina is like the gates of the temple,
Holy of holies.
the holy of holies.
Yeah.
And then as we enter, the cervix is like the door to the altar, I
Mhm.
feel.
Mhm.
And we would never approach an altar and be like, hey, let me
Mhm.
in, like I'm just gonna take over this place. Like we would never enter a temple like
Mhm.
that. You go into a temple and you pause before you enter the temple,
Mhm.
and you take a breath and you bring your gifts, you bring your incense and your flowers, and you
Yeah.
ask for a blessing before you enter
Mhm.
the temple.
Mhm.
And then as you enter, you go in with awe and wonder and reverence. And when you see and feel the altar, which is the cervix, then you kneel and you pray.
Wow.
So for me, that is the connection that is possible between a man and a woman when we make love, is really the sacredness that is actually even in the design of
Mhm.
our physical form.
Thank you. Yeah, that's beautiful and that's so accurate. And at the top of the Ark of the Covenant, there's two cherubs, the holy of the holies, literally two cherubs, one male and female, and they're like when they're about to come together, it's like this holy, above the Ark of the Covenant, literally two cherubs about to. And back in Africa, I believe that they would literally, before they were about to have a child, they would, like, the man and woman would go apart and like long time ago in the tribes, purify themselves, pray, purify their thoughts, purify their minds, and then come together. And it was this like holy gathering, and that, you know what I mean? And and so thank you for walking us through that, and I think next time, to really think about the female as the sacred altar, the sacred portal from which all life comes from. Behind every great man is a greater woman, and we all come through the sacred Yoni. So Alice, when I held space for you, you had this passion for New Earth. You had this passion, and you're doing it. You're serving. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you see sacred sexuality evolving, and how that's going to be part of the New Earth, and kind of what your vision of how that's going to integrate into each other is?
I mean, for me, and what I've seen is that there's a few topics in the world right now that really hold a lot of unlocked power, and one of them is sexuality. It's like the thing that many of us are trying to get, but we don't really know how to get it. And it's not even about sex. It's really about love. I think. I think it all often, any conflict internally within ourselves, interpersonally, and in the world has to do with us not realizing that we are love. We forgot, or we were told that that wasn't the case. We are powerful beings, and we were told that we weren't. So from a young age, we learned how to try and hook people. And in some ways, we had to, because when we were babies, we really needed people, especially our parents, to give us that love so that we could be fed and held and have all of our basic needs met. We really needed to do that. So when we were babies, we learned how to cry, and then we learned how to look really cute. And then we learned, like, if I just do this blowing bubbles with my mouth thing, then other people will think that I'm really cool, and they'll give me all this love and attention. And then when we get older, 3, 4, then we learned, if I throw a tantrum and I push all these things off of the shelf in the grocery store, like, somebody's going to give me attention. And then we get into our teenager years, and then we learned, I got to be, excel at everything that I do, or I got to be a rebel and a badass or whatever. So as we grow older, we just learn more sophisticated, sometimes sophisticated strategies in order to get the love that we think that we need from the outside. So my wish and what I love to work with is to support people to connect back to the power that is in your body and that is in your sexuality. You have infinite creative power that exists in you. And men, like, you have so much power that's held in your ojas, which is in your semen. Right? This is powerful. This is the seed for creation. Like, I wish that all young people were told this and taught this. So you hold that seed. It's so powerful. So how do you choose to use it? And for women, it's the same. We have this sacred vessel. So how do we stand in our own power, our own queendom, to know, who am I going to let in? What kind of energy will I also give myself over so that I can feel safe enough, welcome enough to fully dissolve and back home into creation? So I feel that sex is one of these distorted topics that, because we don't talk about it in a healthy way, like we're having conversations now, that people have all sorts of stories around it. And that creates distortion around how we interact with each other. So we end up just looking for love. And sometimes that's looking for sex in ways that we think will fill us up. But of course, when we do that, it doesn't. But we keep on thinking that it does. So my wish is that when we know the truth of our own creative power, that we can create anything that we want to on this planet. And then when we come together as powerful beings and we come into co-creation together, like, that's the planet that I want to live on. When we know our own power, when we're willing to, like, crack open the shields of our heart and meet in that place. That is exciting for me.
Yeah, beautiful. And that's I hope you guys heard what Alice just said. Like, you have unlimited creative power right now in your body right now. You can create a business with it. You can create a new earth with it. You can create anything you choose to create with it, by utilizing that sacred fluid and bringing it, like Alice said, cracking open you can bring where attention goes, energy flows, and it goes, bringing it to your heart, bringing it to your third eye, and visualizing and seeing exactly what it is you want to create, and getting clear with the universe. And that energy will literally spread into your auric field, and literally it will strengthen your auric field, and it will attract to you everything that it is that you intend to create. Now, there's also a secret: the not only dimensional, but multi-dimensional sex, but also so men, I don't know if you've heard this, but you can literally go forever, right? So at 70%, if you and your partner are communicating, you can squeeze the perineum, you can hold it, and you still release the power from your cells, and you bring that into your heart and your third eye, and you think about what it is you want to create. Then you take a short rest, and you let that settle into your auric field, and then you can keep going all day and use, like Alice said, the most powerful creative force on the planet to continuously strengthen your auric field and to continuously create whatever it is you want to create. And so, Alice, for that person who's out there, maybe this is something new to them. Maybe they've heard little glimpses. They were brought up in a church, and now they're slowly opening up to the potential and the possibility that, hey, you know what? I want to explore sacred sexuality. They want to, what kind of advice would you give to them? Where's a good place to start? Any advice you can give to someone who might be listening who feels curious to start exploring sacred sexuality?
Yeah, for sure. Um, for if you want to learn about women's pleasure anatomy in particular, feel free to reach out to me. I've also got an online course called Nectar, the Sweetness of Female Pleasure, which is filmed for women. However, I've had many couples go through it as well, and also some men say like, hey, I want to learn more about how I can be present with my lovers, which is such a beautiful thing. So that's there. You can just hop on my website, salicehahn.com. And find Nectar there. ISTA, as you mentioned before, Sam, is fantastic. I would also highly recommend this. It's co-ed, and they do really beautiful, powerful work in there. And then also, if you want to explore a book, Diana Richardson has a great book called Slow Sex, and it really like opens up the field of Tantra and intimacy in this feeling of like non-doing and resting in love together, which is very beautiful as
Amazing.
well.
Okay, cool. So we'll definitely link Alice's website. We'll link her online course and Diana Richardson, as well as a link to ISTA. So check out the links, and we're going to link all those things into there.
One other thing, Sam,
Yeah.
is that once in a while, if a couple really, really wants to dive into it together, or a woman on her own, or a couple together, like also feel free to reach out. Like I'm super approachable, like just send me an email, and then I do offer some private coaching as well for the couple who's really like we're devoted and we want to go in this together. Even if you come with some challenges and blocks, all good, but the longing and the devotion, if that's there, that's everything.
Amazing. Yeah, and I would highly, highly recommend, because I get to witness Alice and Amir, and like I said, they're doing something right. And I've heard that people who go to Alice's, Untamed, she does a women's retreat, like literally within just like 1 or 2 sessions, there's huge shifts that happen. And so, the body to reclaim that power, that creative force, to feel safe in the body, to tap and tune into your unlimited sexual power, creative force. And Alice has walked this journey, and she's teaching from her heart. She went through the entire journey, and she's in sacred partnership, and she's teaching these amazing courses. So if you feel called for a one-to-one, Alice Hong Official on Instagram, we'll also link that in the notes, or her online courses. We'll link that all together. And like, I cannot emphasize like how this is such a key for humanity. Without going too deep into it, like this part of, with so much compassion, because it's been systematically, targeted in humanity to shut humanity down. In fact, religion, it's the opposite of what they're saying. They're saying, oh, it's sin, it's bad, it's guilt, it's shame. No, actually, the opposite of guilt is pleasure. Why would God create sex to feel so amazing, especially if you've never experienced true Tantra, safety, presence, breath, no goal? Once you experience that, you can never go back to like pound, pound, pound for a goal. You will never go back, because the way that God actually really created sexuality is for the ultimate pleasure. And, someone says pleasure is the opposite of guilt and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Pleasure is something that a lot of us have been taught is not good. But actually, no, God created it in a way for it to be pleasurable for a reason. And it's time now, as brothers and sisters, and male and female, and to really come into our power and to utilize this creative force It's God making love with God, God feeling pleasure through you. That's why humanity was created.
Mhm.
God wanted to feel, and Alice laid out for you today to get back in touch with your body, whether it's through Yoni mapping, whether it's through going, taking the online course, whether it's going to ISTA, whether it's doing one-to-one coaching, whatever it is. To this is where the power lies, and we are powerful, and it's our God-given right to feel pleasure and to feel safe and to held and to restore that original blueprint of male and female to fulfill that longing for source. And so that God can cry those tears of, wow, this is what I waited for.
Yeah.
And you can utilize that energy to create a beautiful family, but also to create a new earth.
Yeah.
And that's the work that Alice is up to in her partnership, as well as in her courses. Untamed she does courses all around the world, really. So check her website out. Alice, is there anything else coming through that you want to share with the audience that maybe we haven't touched about today?
Sure. I mean, two things. One is the message that gets transmitted through me, especially in medicine journeys, is we're just making love with itself. So love, making love, making love, making love, making love. Like, this is always the mantra that is rolling through me. And then the other thing is, back in October when the war started in Gaza, my in-laws had just landed here the night before, and they're from Israel on a scheduled holiday. And we woke up that morning and was like, holy fuck, like, what happened, And then hours later, I was scheduled to teach at a Burning Man decompression party. And I was teaching sex magic. I was teaching tantric connections and sex magic. And in that moment, I was really like just in heart devastation, like people are being killed, like kidnapped, murdered, like we don't know what's going on. And I was like, how can I go and teach sex magic at decomp? Like, who cares? Like, there's more important things that we need to do on this planet right now. And, I went there and I had this strong realization, the moment that I walked into that workshop space was like, actually, this fucking does matter. Because if we can meet in tantric connection and we can look each other in the eye and understand that we're both human beings and let our hearts crack open, that you feel grief just like I do, you feel disappointment just like I do, you feel longing just like I do, and we can crack ourselves open. And then we learn how to run that energy through sex magic, which is a lot of what you were talking about, Sam, and what we were talking about drawing creative energy up through the chakras, up through, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and then into source, and really allow our creative power to channel through our whole humanness to then envision what it is that we want to create on this planet. Like, then yeah, that's why we're doing this. This is why we do this now. And I have this like wet dream fantasy, that like all the world leaders at some point would be doing sex magic at home and like doing tantric eye gazing with like their neighbor, because I just really feel like this is what's needed, because when our hearts crack open to each other, there can be no war. You just can't anymore.
Oh. Well, I'm adding a little intention to, Putin and all those leaders doing tantric eye gazing, dropping in, because you're right though. Like once they, I love that you brought that up, and to end this, really bringing it there, because once you experience that connection and vulnerability and presence with no goal with another human being, that's love making love with love. And once you know, you cannot not know. And so I, in a way, like I really want to and then that creative force, I love how you brought it into the chakras and into the source and whatever you want to create. This is an essential part of the creation of a new earth. And I love that you're seeing the new earth leaders, with that dream, because I do think that, I know some people might not get it, but that is essential. part of creating the new earth. And so thank you, Alice, for all of the work that you're doing, for your beautiful, amazing journey, for your sacred partnership, and for teaching, and for most of all, just the passion you have for love and for creating the new earth. We'll post all the links on the show notes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on another episode of the Spiritual Psychiatrist Podcast. Thanks, Alice, for being on. Love, light, peace, and truth to all sentient beings. Till next time, peace.